basement, you're often going to be dealing with some support columns like we have here. You'll see on the other wall that I have on the other side of the room, you saw earlier, if you watch my other videos, how I included that post into my wall layout and design so it's buried inside the wall. What we have here is one wall on this room that's going to be a straight wall turning into a half wall, so we're going to use the back of that staircase as a flat wall, and we're also going to bury our steel poles here into that wall here. So if we line up our wall here, we position it so that this 3.5 inch, roughly 3.5 inch pole is right inside of these 3.5 inch studs. So when we put our drywall on, it's going to cover right over the top of that. In this one actually happens to be in the middle of a half wall. I intentionally laid out this half wall here so I could include this post somewhere in. But because we have a half wall now, that post continued up here beyond my half wall height, so I had to do something to hide that post. In this case, I boxed it in. I wanted to use a fairly clean pine, not a knotty pine. Now it depends what look you're going for, whether you choose knotty or a clean pine. In this case, pine was easy, it's cheap. You pay a little more for some premium lumber that doesn't have as many knots in it like you see here. In this case, I used a 1/2 inch pine. So for this, I cut the pine to the width of the post, basically the overall outer diameter of the post. I cut this side and the opposite side over here, the width of that post. And then I cut these two pieces, the full face pieces, to be the width of the post plus this thickness. So now you can see I've got a full face piece on this side and also a full face piece on the other side. When I put these together, we clamped them. I also glued with a wood glue in between, and then I used brads to tack that together. Kept it clamped for a good day to make sure that that glue is going to keep these joints really solid. The brads are going to help hold it together, but that glue is really what's going to stiffen this up. Once that's done, you still have these two surfaces, these joints here, and where your boards are coming together. With your wood, there's always going to be the variations of thickness of the cut. Sometimes if that wood, it might be cut swell or maybe just soft or hard, and you may have different contours of the edges of the wood where you've gone in there. So we're going to take and sand this entire surface down where we've got those joints. We're going to sand this with a little bit of a coarse grit first to get it all at the same plane, and then we're going to fine sand that to get it right together so you have a nice flush surface. Then took some wood filler, and you can probably see the coloration here. Took some wood filler to fill in the indentations or the recesses that we have that still might be in the gaps between the joints or anywhere else on the wood. And then we're going to fine sand that all the way down. What we've got here now, same thing with any knots or imperfections. What we've got here now is a nice, extremely smooth surface on all sides. In this case, we're going to paint this, so I'm not really worried about the color of the wood filler or anything. If you're going to stain it or varnish it, you may want to be a little more choosy about the type of wood filler or the coloration of that you're using. But this is one way I've got this boxed in, so we've got a nice, clean looking post around this. Now the other issue is how do we fix this post in place so it's not kind of loose and rocking around that pole. I'll start with the top and then tied off my support right into the middle. And now this actually gives me a nice top plate type of area where when I box in this beam on all sides, I have a place that I can build right up to and tie off right across the top here after I box this in. The top, after I had my post, or my box centered around the post, I leveled it, put it where I want it to be, and then up here I built this framed in box around the box. That way it keeps it nice and tight. You can also shim if you want up in here with some very narrow shims to keep that in place, and it means it allows this post to really be solid and not move. I'm going to trim around here, and that will be nice and covered up with some trim when it's done. Down here on this side, you can see that my box is going to end here where this, in this case, we're going to have a countertop, so where the countertop ends. Down inside here, you can see that the post is just running inside of these two framed half walls. There's no reason to hold this post anywhere down here. It's already secure. But on the other side, you can see we ran this full face piece all the way down the front of the wall. And again, whether you're going to paint it, stain it, you can choose what you want to do to finish it that way. But this piece is now bradded or nailed through into the studs of these two support walls. So this is running down, nailed into the studs and the drywall finished off next to the studs there. So this post is fully secured, tied into this wall to keep it solid and prevent drywall or other cracking from going on.